Hi there, welcome to Bible/Chat. Gus, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. You premeditated my question. So today's going to be kind of an awkward one because I pulled a muscle in my back. And so anytime I want to turn to look at you, I have to turn the entire chair.
But thankfully, these chairs are enough swivel.
They swivel nicely,
Yeah,
but when I try to turn my neck, I feel like someone's ramming a knife right between my ribs. So,
how did you pull a muscle?
Being an idiot.
All right, tell me about it.
No. Do we have a question for today?
We do have a question.
Ask it.
How did you pull the muscle?
No, we're not talking about it.
It's an issue.
I was exercising.
It's an issue of age.
I can
tell.
I'm old. I was trying to exercise.
Were you pulling weeds?
No. I wasn't.
Were you making breakfast?
I wasn't doing helpful exercise. That's the problem. I was trying to stay in shape.
You're not as young as you used to be.
I'm really not. Everything is broken.
You're north of 40, right?
Very north of 40. Yeah, almost 45.
Well,
I'm halfway to 50.
You're still young.
Stop.
It's fine. Yes, there's a question that I actually wanted to talk about a couple weeks ago, or maybe. It was probably 2 weeks ago. You were talking about partnering with churches.
Oh, yeah.
And a church. And immediately after that, we were talking with, I got in a conversation with someone about like partnering with, ministries. We did one on missions. Remember, we did one on how to choose a missionary. But even like when you even talked about churches like Cross Life, very close to us.
Yeah.
Visiting or partnering with a church or partnering with another church overseas. You partner with a church in India. I know you partner with a church in Italy and Spain. How should we because, I maybe the elder board has that, is clear on that.
Yeah.
But how about the regular Joe, that goes to church and says, hey, like, how should I partner with this church? Or how should I have a heart for this country, of this ministry. How should I think about this?
Yeah.
Just as a layperson.
Yeah, totally. So that's actually super helpful to think through that.
Thank you. I thought
this was given to me cold. I didn't have any pre-warning.
No, that's why it's written right here.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So the way that I would think about that, there's two things you have to think about. The first one is still that theological triage component. Where you have the gospel as the core, and then church life as the second tier, and then like those tertiary issues. I personally, even as a layperson, I would advise a layperson to partner primarily with people who are gospel core people, who are on the same page as the gospel core. Doesn't mean that you can't partner with someone who's like a Presbyterian or someone in the someone who's a Baptist overseas functionally doing ministry. That's great. We have no problem with that. But that, as long as that gospel core is intact. So that's in terms of like choosing who to partner with. I would want to make sure that gospel core is intact. That'd be the first thing I would say. And then in terms of how that should look, like the practical component of that, what I would do is a person who comes and says, who do I partner with? What do I want to do? I would start actually with their local church. Yeah. I would say like the first place you need to be serving is actually a local church. Are you serving your local church? Are you giving to your local church? And if the answer is yes, I'm doing all those things. I just have this heart for the wider church. Then I would say, okay, so long as your heart's submitted and doing that in the local church, that's great. When you go to the wider church, so then I would say like maybe 3 tiers here. If you go to the wider church, participation in other churches should primarily actually be through your local church. So the local church should have ways and means by which a person who's in the church can then functionally be using their gifts also at other churches. For example, we have a lot of folks who are like very savvy when it comes to building, right? And so we sent a missions team to Spain to partner with the church there and with the seminary there in order to help build out the seminary building and to do the flooring, and I think they did some painting and lighting in that building. I wasn't on that trip. But there's people using their gifts that they could use here as well, and they do use those gifts here in the local church, but through the local church and through the channel of the local church, they're able to use those gifts to serve another church that's also a gospel preaching church. So I would encourage primary, so like if the first tier is, are you serving in your local church? And then are you serving in ways that your local church has established for you to serve in the wider church? Another example would be Cross Life Bible Church, who we love, James Lee. His church did their church retreat, and they needed someone to do childcare. And so They contacted us. We put the word out, and a couple of ladies came out and said, "Hey, we'll help out with childcare." So they were willing to use their gifts in order to serve another church that's even a local church, but that was still through their local church. So again, that would be the second tier. Third tier out from that would be things that you do that are not your local church, not through your local church, but are apart from your local church. And in those contexts, I would say, like, honestly, the best way to do that is just like pray and ask the Lord to help you, to give you clarity about what He would have you to do in those ministries. In terms of percentage, the greatest percentage should be in your local church. Second greatest percentage should be in local church type ministries that are done through your local church. So this is kind of a small kind of a band around what we do as Christians. It's not a big percentage of our time, not a big percentage of our resources, of our gift usage. But if there's places where you can be used, then just pray and ask the Lord to give you clarity about what that would look like. That might end up being things like humanitarian stuff, international philanthropic agencies. It might be, it will likely be related to things that are gospel centered, so that'd be important. Ministries like, for example, Children's Hunger Fund, which is great. They're fantastic. You want to give to Children's Hunger Fund, they have a really sound ecclesiology. Their gospel, we're on the same page in the gospel. They're sending food to places, to churches, so that those local churches can then distribute that food. So again, you have a ministry there that our church doesn't necessarily support, as a local church. As a local church, we're not doing anything to support that ministry. So this would be like a third level where a person could say, I really want to reach out, and they're able to give and to care for and to help a ministry that is still first tier central in terms of their theology, church focused, very biblical, and also philanthropic. So but again, that should be in the conscience of the person. Their heart and conscience should say, I really love this ministry and I think it's something I want to do.
So I think it's really interesting that you said that. Obviously, we all would affirm that the local church is probably the most important part, and then everything that goes to the local church. Do you even think that even the last part, and this is not a trick question, but I'm seriously asking, it should be subjected to the local church, even the last part of, say, if I wanted to partner with Children's Hunger Fund or Rescue Mission or
whatever,
or should I say, hey, go to my elders and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you guys think?
It's a good question. I would say for sure. I mean, you want to make sure that those things are, it's easy for us to be deceived, right? All of us, even as elders, even as people with seminary degrees, it's easy to be deceived by people who say good things, but who are actually doing unwise things. Just even as an example, there was a guy who was in India, and he seemed to have a very flourishing ministry in India, but the more we found out, it turns out that the guy was actually, it was all just smoke and mirrors. He was actually taking money from people in the U.S., and what he would do is he'd have them over to visit the sites where he was doing things, and what he would do is set up a humanitarian thing, and then take him to that place, and it looked great. Then he would tear it down overnight, take it to another place, set it up again, and take him to that place with another different group of people. And so he was just doing that, and all the while just taking money and keeping it for himself. So, this is where it's very important. It is good. It's very important to get wisdom or to seek wisdom from other people who can give you wisdom into those situations. And I would say primarily the elders. Doesn't mean you have to get elder approval to give to anything or anything like that, but that's just a way to inform your conscience as you're praying about ways that you could be, that you could be using money, you could be using time or gifts.
Oh, that's great. That's super helpful, actually.
It's a great question. Super helpful. Well, I hope that's helpful for you. If you have any questions about this topic or any topic, actually, feel free to email us at info@faithbibleoc.org. Thanks so much, Gus.
Thanks.